India just declared economic war on America, and your gas prices are about to prove it. On March 15, 2025, Modi's government slapped a 300% retaliatory tariff on U.S. oil imports worth $8.7 billion a year. If you filled your tank this week, you're already caught in the crossfire. But this isn't really about oil. It's about something far more dangerous, the complete reshaping of global power. But before we dive in, if you're new here, hit the subscribe button and leave a comment. I subscribe. And I'll personally welcome you into the family. With that said, let's get started. Let me take you back to February 28th. Trump's standing at a podium, announcing sweeping secondary sanctions on any nation buying Russian oil above the $60 price cap. Sounds tough, right? Sounds like leadership. Except Trump just handed India an impossible choice. Betray Russia and cripple your economy, or defy America and risk everything. Here's why that's a nightmare for India. They import 88% of their crude oil, 1.2 million barrels every single day from Russia. That's 40% of their total imports. Since the Ukraine invasion started in 2022, Indian refiners have saved between $3 and $4 billion yearly on discounted Russian crude. That's not just money sitting in government accounts. That's fuel for 15 million trucks, 80,000 buses, and 2.8 million auto rickshaws. That's the entire economy running on a discount that keeps inflation manageable for 1.4 billion people. Let me introduce you to Priya Sharma. She's 34, lives in Mumbai, runs a small delivery business with 3 trucks. Single mother. Works 14-hour days. Her husband left when their daughter was 2. She built this business from nothing, 1 truck in 2019, now 3 by 2025. In 48 hours after the sanctions announcement, diesel jumped 22 rupees per liter. For context, that's like gas jumping from $3 to $4.50 overnight in America. Priya told reporters she had to choose between fuel and her daughter's school fees. I filled 1 truck halfway, she said, her voice shaking. I told my drivers to turn off engines at red lights, coast downhill, avoid air conditioning even in 42-degree heat. I stopped taking orders beyond 10 kilometers. And still, I was losing money on every delivery. Her drivers started complaining. 1 quit. Another threatened to. Her daughter asked why they weren't eating chicken anymore. Priya stopped sleeping. She'd lie awake calculating. If diesel goes up 2 more rupees, I'm finished. If it hits 100 rupees per liter, I shut down and 11 people lose their jobs. But Priya's nightmare was just beginning. Because Modi was about to flip the chessboard. March 15, 2025. India's Commerce Ministry walks into a press conference. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman is stone-faced. She announces 300% tariffs on U.S. crude, refined products, and liquefied natural gas. Not 50%. Not 100%. 300%. That's $8.7 billion in annual U.S. energy exports essentially shut out overnight. The room went silent. Then chaos. Reporters shouting questions. American diplomats in Delhi making frantic phone calls. Within an hour, the U.S. State Department issued a statement calling it a reckless escalation that will harm India's own interests. But here's what they didn't expect. The Indian stock market rallied. The Sensex jumped 847 points. But because investors saw something Washington missed, India wasn't bluffing. They'd done the math. They'd secured alternative supplies. They were ready for this fight. American oil producers who'd been selling to India? Scrambling. ConocoPhillips had contracts worth $1.2 billion with Indian Oil Corporation. Gone. Chevron supplied LNG to Gujarat terminals. $890 million annually. Suspended. Within 72 hours, both companies' stocks dropped 7% in a single trading session. That's $14 billion in market value vanished. Boardrooms in Houston went into panic mode. I talked to James Richardson, a former Chevron executive who worked on the India portfolio. We spent 8 years building those relationships, he said. 8 years navigating regulations, negotiating contracts, establishing trust. Modi destroyed it in 8 minutes. But here's the twist nobody saw coming. Instead of crawling back to the negotiating table, India pivoted harder into Russia, Iran, and the UAE. Within a week, Indian Oil Corporation signed a new agreement with Rosneft for an additional 500,000 barrels per day. Putin didn't just maintain his customer, he gained leverage. The US didn't just lose an $8.7 billion market, it handed its biggest competitor $2.4 billion in new guaranteed revenue. Dr. Rajesh Patel at the Energy Policy Institute in Delhi published a study in 2024 that found something chilling. Every 10% increase in oil dependency on Russia gives Moscow 3% more negotiating power over New Delhi. Translation? America's sanctions didn't punish Russia. They chained India to Russia. They created the exact alliance they were trying to prevent. Now, if you think this is just a two-country spat, you're missing the real game. Because 17 other countries are watching. And 3 have already made their move. Meet Bahlil Lahadalia, Indonesia's energy minister. March 20th, he goes on national television in Jakarta and makes a statement that sends shockwaves through Washington. We will not be dictated to on sovereign energy choices. Indonesia is not a colony. We will buy oil from whoever offers the best terms. Within 3 weeks, Indonesia, the world's 7th largest economy, 280 million people, increases Russian oil imports by 34%. Not quietly through shell companies. Proudly. Publicly. State-owned Pertamina signs deals worth $6 billion with Russian exporters. Brazil's President Lula da Silva makes similar noises. Brazil determines Brazil's energy policy, he announces. Within days, Petrobras executives are in Moscow. South Africa sends trade delegations. Turkey, which has been playing both sides for years, expands its Russian oil network by 28%. The IMF released a working paper in 2024, document number 089. I read the whole thing, 187 pages of economic analysis. The conclusion is brutal. Secondary sanctions reduce compliance by 42%, but increase anti-US coalition building by 68%. Think about that math. For every country you successfully pressure, you create 1.6 new adversaries. America tried to isolate Russia. Instead, it isolated itself from $47 billion in annual emerging market energy trade. It's like a surgeon trying to remove a tumor who accidentally cuts out his own heart. Let me show you how this plays out on the ground. Back to Priya in Mumbai. I checked in with her last week through a journalist contact there. The Indian government rolled out an emergency 8,000 rupee fuel subsidy for small businesses. That's about $95. Sounds like nothing, right? Barely covers 2 weeks of diesel. But when I asked her how she felt about Modi's tariffs, her answer surprised me. She got quiet for a moment. Then, he's fighting for us. Look, I'm not political. I voted for Congress last time, not BJP. I don't wear orange scarves or go to rallies. But this feels different. America has been pushing us around for decades. Do this, don't do that, sanction this country, boycott that one. And for what? They don't care if my trucks run or my daughter eats. They care about their own game. She paused. Yes, it's painful. Yes, I'm still struggling. I took a loan from my brother I don't know how I'll repay. But at least someone's standing up to the bullies. At least someone's saying no. That's the emotion Trump didn't account for. National pride. Historical resentment. Indians remember 1971 when America sent the 7th Fleet to intimidate India during the Bangladesh Liberation War. They remember 1998 sanctions after nuclear tests. They remember being lectured about democracy while Pakistan, a military dictatorship, got billions in aid. So they're rallying behind Modi despite the economic pain. Because in their eyes, sovereignty isn't negotiable, even if it costs them. But here's what CNN and Fox aren't showing you. Here's who's really winning this fight. Russian Urals crude is now trading at $79 per barrel to India. Read that again. $79. The West's price cap was $60. Putin just broke the ceiling, and nobody can stop him. Here's how the scheme works, and it's brilliant in its simplicity. Indian refiners pay the premium price of $79 per barrel. They refine that crude into diesel, gasoline, and jet fuel at facilities in Jamnagar, Vadner, and Mangalore. Then they sell those refined products globally at market rates, currently $95 to $100 per barrel equivalent. Russia gets paid above the cap and moves 1.2 million barrels daily. India makes a 15 to 20% refining margin, which is higher than usual because of the price differential. China facilitates the shipping through its tanker network and takes a 3% cut on logistics. Everyone profits, except the United States. Oh, and China. Let's talk about China for a second because this is where it gets really interesting. Beijing didn't jump into this fight publicly. Xi Jinping didn't give speeches condemning American sanctions. They just quietly increased oil tanker leasing to India by 156%, according to the Maritime Intelligence Report from March 2025. China owns 847 oil tankers through state-backed companies. They're now leasing 312 of them specifically for Russia-India routes. That's ships that were handling Middle East crude now repositioned entirely for this trade. China's playing the middleman, taking a cut on every shipment, strengthening ties with both Russia and India, positioning itself as the indispensable facilitator. They're winning this war without firing a shot or even taking a public stance. That's strategic brilliance. But here's the plot twist that should terrify Washington. The biggest loser in all of this? The European Union. They relied heavily on refined products from India: diesel, jet fuel, gasoline. Indian refineries are among the most sophisticated in the world, capable of processing heavy crude that European refineries can't handle efficiently. Germany alone imported $4.7 billion in refined products from India in 2024. Now they're facing shortages and an 18% price increase. I spoke to Hans Müller, owner of Müller Logistics, a German trucking company with 47 trucks operating across 6 countries. We're paying more for diesel refined in India than we did before the war, he told me, frustration dripping from every word. We're at €1.89 per liter now. Last year, €1.58. That's a 20% increase eating into margins we don't have. His company employs 130 people. He's already laid off 8. The sanctions were supposed to hurt Putin, Hans said. Instead, they're killing me. Bloomberg Economics ran the numbers in their 2025 Global Energy Outlook. Their model shows that for every $1 of Russian revenue blocked by sanctions, Western consumers pay $1.40 in higher energy costs. Let that sink in. The policy designed to bankrupt Russia is bankrupting German truck drivers instead. Your grocery bill goes up because transport costs more. Your heating bill climbs. Your flight tickets increase because jet fuel is expensive. All caught in this economic hurricane that was supposed to stay contained in Moscow. And it's about to get exponentially worse. Because there's a deadline no one's talking about, and it's 8 days away. May 1st. That's the date circled in red on every Pentagon calendar. India threatens to exit U.S. defense agreements worth $23 billion if the oil tariffs aren't lifted by that date. $23 billion. To understand what that means, let me break it down. India currently buys 60% of its military hardware from America. C-130J Super Hercules transport planes. H-64 Apache helicopters. MH-60 are Seahawk anti-submarine helicopters. Poseidon maritime patrol aircraft. M777 howitzers. G414 engines for their indigenous fighter jets. The list goes on and on. That's not just sales. That's jobs in Arizona, Connecticut, Texas, Indiana. That's Lockheed Martin's second largest customer. That's General Electric's partnership that was supposed to last 30 years. That's Boeing's growth strategy for the next decade. But Russia's already at the door with an offer. Su-57 stealth fighters at $85 million each, compared to $125 million for American F-35s. S-400 missile defense systems that many experts consider superior to American Patriot systems. Akula-class submarines for lease. T-90 MS tanks. The works. A Pentagon internal memo got leaked last week to the Washington Post. I'm quoting directly from page 3. Losing India to the Russian defense sphere would be the greatest strategic loss since the 1979 Iranian Revolution. The implications for Indo-Pacific security architecture would be catastrophic and potentially irreversible. That's not hyperbole from some think tank. That's terror from the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Because if India flips, everything collapses like dominoes. The Quad Alliance, United States, India, Japan, Australia, meant to contain China? The Malabar naval exercises? Finished. The intelligence sharing on Chinese military movements? Gone. The buffer against Chinese expansion in the Indian Ocean? Vanished. India controls the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, which sit right at the entrance to the Malacca Strait. 80% of China's oil flows through that strait. If India's hostile or even neutral, America's entire containment strategy fails. Trump's now staring at an impossible choice, and the clock is ticking. Lift the sanctions, look weak to the hawks in Congress, embolden every other country to defy U.S. demands, face attacks from Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio calling him soft on Russia. Keep the sanctions, lose India, boost Russia, spike gas prices to $5.50 or $6 per gallon right before the 2026 midterms, hand the Democrats ammunition for every campaign ad. There's no good option. Only degrees of disaster. Priya Sharma told me something last week that's stuck in my head. I'm learning to survive with less, she said quietly. I wake up at 4 a.m. now to beat the traffic and save fuel. I've mapped out routes that have fewer red lights. I only take orders from repeat customers I trust will pay on time. My daughter understands why we eat dal and rice 4 nights a week now instead of chicken. She doesn't complain anymore. She just looks at me with these big eyes that break my heart. She stopped talking for a moment. I could hear traffic noise in the background, horns blaring. Then, but my country isn't backing down. And neither am I. We've survived worse. We'll survive this. That's the sound of quiet determination mixed with exhausted anxiety. Power flexing on the global stage while ordinary people bear the weight. The World Bank's 2025 Emerging Markets Report estimates that every month this standoff continues, global oil markets lose $12 billion in efficiency. $12 billion. Just evaporating into geopolitical ego and pride. 2 nuclear powers. 2 leaders who've built their brands on never backing down. 1 commodity that powers the world. And millions of people like Priya and Hans stuck in the middle, watching prices climb, watching savings disappear, watching their futures become uncertain. Now let's zoom out for a minute. Because this isn't just about India and this isn't just about 2025. This is the death rattle of a doctrine that's shaped international relations for 30 years. Go back to 2014. The West slaps sanctions on Russia over Crimea. Visa and MasterCard cut off Russian banks. Western companies exit. The ruble crashes. Everyone declares victory. Except by 2024, Russia's economy has grown 4%. They built their own payment system, Mir. They pivoted to China and India. They became more independent, not less. Maximum pressure on Iran. The toughest sanctions ever imposed, according to the Trump administration. Iranian oil exports were supposed to go to zero. Except they didn't. Shadow tankers flagged in obscure countries. Ship-to-ship transfers in international waters. Sales through front companies in China and India. Iranian oil kept flowing, 700,000 to 1.2 million barrels per day depending on who's counting. Sanctions on anyone dealing with Russia above the price cap. The intended result: isolate Russia, starve their war machine, force capitulation. The actual result: an India-Russia-China triangle that's stronger than ever. The exact opposite of what the policy was designed to achieve. Harvard Kennedy School released a comprehensive study in 2025 analyzing 187 sanctions regimes since 1990. The conclusion? Modern sanctions succeed in achieving stated policy goals only 22% of the time. However, they create lasting anti-Western alliances 74% of the time and accelerate de-dollarization efforts 89% of the time. Read those numbers again. 1 in 5 sanctions work. 3 in 4 create permanent enemies. 9 in 10 push countries away from the dollar. The weapon that was supposed to win wars without fighting is creating enemies faster than bombs ever did, and undermining the financial system those weapons depend on. So what happens next? I've been talking to economists, policy experts, and energy analysts for the past 2 weeks. I see 3 scenarios. And only one doesn't end in economic chaos for everyone. Scenario 1. Total war. Trump decides he can't be seen backing down. He doubles down, threatens India with comprehensive trade penalties beyond just energy, semiconductors, pharmaceuticals, IT services. He revokes the H-1B visa program that Indian tech workers depend on. India responds by formally exiting the Quad alliance and joining the BRICS Plus defense pact alongside Russia, China, Brazil, and South Africa. Putin and Xi celebrate publicly. Russia pours advanced weapons into India at discount prices to lock in the alliance. Oil markets panic. Crude hits $140 per barrel by July. Your gas costs $6 per gallon. Airlines cut flights. Shipping costs explode. Inflation hits 9%. The Fed raises rates aggressively. Stock market crashes. Global recession by September. This is the nightmare scenario. Nobody wins. Everybody loses. But egos and politics make it terrifyingly possible. Scenario 2. Quiet retreat. Trump's advisors convince him the costs are too high. He creates a face-saving exception for India. Claims it's a reward for counterterrorism cooperation after they helped track down some terror cell. Something vague enough that nobody can disprove it. He declares victory, says India agreed to enhanced monitoring of Russian oil purchases. Domestic media buys it. Crisis averted, right? Except the sanctions architecture crumbles. Because now 30 other countries immediately demand the same treatment. Turkey says, we helped with counterterrorism too. Indonesia points to their cooperation on maritime security. Brazil mentions intelligence sharing on drug cartels. The precedent is set. Defy America, wait it out, make enough noise, and eventually, you get your exemption. Within a year, the sanctions regime is Swiss cheese. Russia's oil flows freely under various exemptions and loopholes. The price cap becomes meaningless. America's credibility as an enforcer dies, not in dramatic fashion, but through slow erosion that's somehow worse. Scenario 3. The new reality. The standoff just continues. No dramatic resolution. No winner declared. May 1st comes and goes with more tough talk but no actual rupture. Both sides keep posturing. India keeps buying Russian oil and paying the tariffs on US alternatives they're not buying anyway. America keeps threatening consequences that never quite materialize. But underneath the stalemate, something fundamental shifts. A permanent realignment toward multipolar oil trade. The US loses pricing power over 40% of global energy markets, not overnight, but irreversibly. Russia, China, India, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE create parallel payment systems that bypass SWIFT and the dollar. They settle trades in yuan, rupees, and even experimental digital currencies. The petrodollar doesn't collapse. That's too dramatic. It just becomes one option among several. Countries still hold dollars, still trade in dollars, but now they have alternatives they didn't before. And once you can't force people to use your currency, the whole game changes. Dr. Amy Myers Jaffe at the Council on Foreign Relations wrote something that's been haunting me since I read it. In her 2025 paper, The Post-Petrodollar World, she concludes, we're watching the slow death of dollar hegemony. It won't collapse overnight in some dramatic crisis. It'll just fade, become one option among many. And that changes everything about American power, because that power was always built more on financial architecture than military might. For Priya in Mumbai, for Hans in Germany, for you filling up your tank or buying groceries, this means permanently higher energy costs. 8 to 12% inflation on everything oil touches. Transportation, food production, plastics manufacturing, heating, cooling. The invisible tax of a fracturing world order that doesn't make headlines but guts your wallet month after month. There is a silver lining, though it's cold comfort right now. This crisis is accelerating the green energy transition faster than any climate agreement ever did. EU solar installations are up 67% since the crisis began. India's investing $47 billion in renewable infrastructure over the next 3 years. Even oil-dependent nations are diversifying frantically because they've learned that energy security means independence from anyone's leverage, including Russia's. But solar panels don't fill gas tanks today. Wind turbines don't heat homes this winter. Battery technology isn't ready for long-haul trucking yet. The transition takes decades, and people need to eat and work and survive this month, not in 2045 when we've all gone green. Here's the real story, the one beneath all the headlines and press conferences and diplomatic statements. This was never about oil. It's about whether America can still force the world to choose sides, and what happens when the answer is no. For 70 years, the answer was yes. Since World War II, when Washington said jump, most of the world asked how high. America rebuilt Europe and Japan. America provided security guarantees. America opened its markets. And in return, America got to write the rules. You use our currency. You follow our sanctions. You align with our interests. That was the deal. Not anymore. According to Reuters tracking data compiled in March 2025, 67 nations now ignore U.S. sanctions on Russia in some capacity. 67. That's not a coalition of rogues and dictatorships. That includes NATO ally Turkey. That includes democratic India. That includes U.S. trade partner Brazil. That's a third of the world's nations saying, no thanks, we'll make our own choices. Whether you see that as terrifying or hopeful depends entirely on where you're standing. If you're American, especially if you grew up during the Cold War or the unipolar moment of the 1990s, it feels like losing control. Watching power slip away. Watching a world order that benefited you crumble. If you're Indian, Brazilian, Indonesian, South African, it feels like finally having agency. Finally not being told what to do by people 8,000 miles away who don't understand your reality. Priya's last words to me capture this perfectly. We're not anti-American, she insisted. I've never been to America, but my cousin lives in New Jersey. She loves it there. This isn't personal. We're just pro-survival. And if survival means buying oil from Russia instead of paying 3 times the price for American oil we can't afford, then we buy from Russia. Tell me honestly, wouldn't you do the same? If you had to choose between your principles and your child's dinner, which would you pick? I didn't have an answer for her. I still don't. JP Morgan's 2025 Global Markets Outlook uses a phrase that keeps echoing in my head, the most significant realignment of economic power since Bretton Woods. That was 1944. 81 years ago. The system that shaped everything, how trade works, how currencies interact, how alliances form, is fracturing in real time. And nobody knows what comes next. So here's what I need from you, and I'm genuinely asking because I don't have this figured out. If you were Modi, sitting in that office in New Delhi, would you back down to save the alliance with America? Or would you hold firm and risk everything for sovereignty? What would you do? And if you're American, watching prices climb, answer this honestly. Would you pay $6 per gallon to punish Russia for Ukraine? Or would you let India do what it needs to survive? There's no right answer. But there is your answer. Drop it in the comments, Team Modi or Team Trump, and tell me why. Don't just pick a side. Explain your reasoning. What principles are you following? What would you sacrifice? What line wouldn't you cross? And here's the thing. China's watching this whole situation and making moves you won't believe. They've struck a deal with Iran that makes this crisis look like a playground argument. That video drops Friday, and if you think oil prices are crazy now, wait until you see what happens when that agreement activates. Subscribe so you don't miss it, because what's coming next will change gas prices globally within 90 days. The world order you grew up with, the one where American power was unquestioned, where sanctions meant submission, where the dollar was untouchable, it's dying in real time. The question isn't whether it'll change. That ship has sailed. The question is what comes next, who wins the scramble for the new order, and whether you'll be ready when the dust settles. Hit that subscribe button. This is only the beginning.